Hello, and welcome to Odds on Premier League. It's Matchday 27, 10 games to analyze and to share tips in this show. If I say Premier League, I say Tom Rennie. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Oh, I like that. That could be like a chant from the movie Bring It On. When I say Tom Rennie, you say Premier League. Tom Rennie, Premier League. It doesn't quite work, but I liked it nonetheless. I'm doing well.
Thanks a lot that you are appreciating that. We can make a nice wrap with that then. Before we get going with the show, guys, do not forget, as always, we say to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. But now we are more than ready, so let's go. Our first match, Tom, is Bournemouth Liverpool in the Vitality. Liverpool's goal difference is plus 19 and was actually built against Bournemouth in the reverse fixture when they won 9-0 and with the 7-0 demolition of Manchester United last Sunday in an incredible, of course, an historic night for them and for United as well. Without winning those matches, Liverpool goal difference will be similar to Tottenham's plus 10 or United plus 6. And this could be a deciding factor in the chasing of Champions League places. Klopp's team are fifth now with 42 points, potentially fourth because they have a game in hand. Tom, if they manage to get all the players healthy until the end of the season, they could even go for Manchester United's neck in third place. And Bournemouth collapsed in the dying seconds of the match with Arsenal last Saturday. Liverpool and goal seem the probable scenario here. Will you go for that?
Yes, I will. I think that's absolutely right. Look, Bournemouth was so good last week. It was such a good performance from Bournemouth, who are in this mix of 9 teams who could be relegated, right? And they are showing a fight that we're not seeing from Leicester. We're not really seeing from Everton. We're not seeing from Leeds. We're not seeing from West Ham. We're not seeing from Crystal Palace. We are seeing it from them. And we're seeing it last week, at least, from Southampton. So really impressed with them last week. And it's worth noting, too, that at the end of the game, this is one of those things that really bugs me about football, is that we play to the discretion of the referee, right? But yet with other things now, with VAR and the offsides and all that sort of stuff, we are 100%. That's offside, that is not. So why are we not doing that with the clock? Why are we, the punters, the fans, not seeing a referee's watch on the big screen so we know when the whistle is about to go? Because are we 100% sure there was enough time left on the clock for that Arsenal goal? Are we 100% sure? Oh, the referee wasn't going to blow the whistle at a corner. Well, why not if time's up? And they're allowed to have a little bit of leeway on it. And look, it's all been about Arsenal, and fair enough. But what about Bournemouth? A point for Bournemouth in that game could have been critical, could have been crucial, could keep them up. Recent draws against Nottingham Forest, recent draws against Newcastle, that could keep them up. We certainly didn't see them getting a draw against Newcastle because of what happened last week. Bournemouth go into this game bottom of the Premier League, 1 win in 5, 1 home win in 5. I think that they've got a couple of players in Dominic Solanke and Philip Billing who on their day have got a bit of skill, bit of talent, bit of guile, bit of quality. But in general, I don't see a Premier League quality squad. I think Neto, the goalkeeper, who's now captain, is pretty decent too. But in general, it is an upper championship, lower Premier League table squad, and they kind of end up where you expect them to end up. And this weekend, I don't think it's going to be much dissimilar to the Man City game, their last home game, where they were beaten by 4 goals to 1. I think they will look to stand firm. I think they will look to give Liverpool a game. And I think that they will stand a bit firmer than maybe they did against Manchester City, because Liverpool, despite what happened last week, I don't think they're the Liverpool of old still. I think certainly it was very impressive for Mo Salah, Gakpo and Nunez last week, but it's easy to get up for Manchester United. Can they get up for Bournemouth away? And across this season, thinking about Nottingham Forest, Wolverhampton Wanderers, they've not been able to get up for games like that. The midfield has not been able to compete against these hard-working lower mid-table teams. Of course, bottom of the league table this weekend, but the point remains the same. Bournemouth will look to outwork Liverpool, take their chance, defend stoically, and hope the offense have an off day. That will be the tactic. And I don't know. I think you look at last week with Liverpool, was it a turning point or was it something to celebrate in an otherwise quite dismal season? And I think this game will be the one that tells us that, because away from home, I thought they'd turn the corner against Newcastle. And then what was their next game? It was against Crystal Palace. What happened? I don't know. I fell asleep. So, that's the thing. Are we going to get the Liverpool that thrashed Man United, that outplayed Newcastle, that can score at will? Or are we going to get the team that looked disjointed, dysfunctional? I would err on the side of Liverpool being the better team and scoring plenty of goals because of the opposition and because of last week and because of the week of rest that they've so rarely got in the last year. So I'd be looking here for victory for Liverpool. I would suggest an Asian handicap here to make some money. Look at the odds. You're making no money at a Liverpool win. So look at the Asian handicap at -2 for Liverpool. That's a 3-0 victory, 4-1 victory. That would emulate the game. And I'd also be looking here at Bournemouth not to score. I know they nicked one against Man City. They got a couple against Arsenal. But I feel like if Liverpool get a couple of goals here, you're going to be looking more like the Arsenal game at the start of the season at home than the Man City game where they nicked a late consolation and City switched off. So Liverpool, Asian handicap, -2. And also, it's worth looking at the Mo Salah market as well, who he's not had a vintage season. We know this, but he did score last week. He did become Liverpool's all-time Premier League top goal scorer. So look for him on the shots market. Him and Nunez, both to score, you get for around 7-1. 2 shots from Mo Salah's around 5-1, and Liverpool to win over 2 goals.
And building on that, Bournemouth not to score. Liverpool has kept 6 clean sheets in the last 7 games as well. Some comments already. Millie G, Liverpool and over 2.5 goals. Asian handicap +1. Jose Miguel says for Bournemouth in that case.
Yeah.
So now we can move on to the next one. Next in line is Everton, Brentford in Goodison Park. Brentford, another huge home win on Matchday 26, this case against Fulham. They have 2 games in hands also, Tom, so their standing and their 38 points could get even better. And also how important might be, I believe, that since February, that from February, that next season you are playing in the Premier League. Whatever happens till now, until May, you're going to play Premier League. It gives you the chance to know the money you will have at your disposal. You can start scouting players that fit your philosophy from early on. The only downside is that Thomas Frank is going to be hot property, maybe, Tom, for some bigger clubs than Brentford from next season. For Everton, playing at home is a massive game against Forest. I guess mixed feelings because they could have won it because they were 2 times up in the score sheet, but they could have lost it as well. They were under pressure by the end of the match, ended in a 2-2 draw. I can't see many goals here, Tom, even though Brentford scored 3 against Fulham. I expect something more cagey, provided they're going to play in Goodison Park in front of the Toffees fans. Goals under 2.5 shows odds of 1.75. Ivan Toney scoring anytime, 2.8. But what's your take here, Tom?
Well, I'll go with the under. Absolutely. I mean, starting with Everton, 2 home goals scored under Sean Dyche. One was from a corner against Arsenal. The other was a cross that went in against Leeds United. Didn't score against Aston Villa. They are not a particularly creative team, despite the goals they scored against Nottingham Forest last week. They remain a very Dychian team at this moment in time. He's trying to turn things around quickly when I don't know. I don't know if at this point he's had enough time to fully implement what he wants from his players. You've certainly seen more aggression. You've certainly seen more get to the end line, try and force a corner. You've certainly seen them try and bully the opponents more and be braver against the opponents at crucial points of the game. So I think they're really interesting, Everton. And it's really interesting here. The odds are almost dead even for both teams. They're going to be very close right up to kickoff. I think you look at the corner market here in this game. I think you'll be looking at over 5 corners per team and under 2.5 goals in the game. If the winning goal doesn't come from a corner in this match, I would be stunned. Everton likely not to have Dominic Calvert-Lewin still, which means what? Neil Maupay doesn't work in this team up front. And it means they do what they can to get to the end line, get a corner and try and score from it. I don't see them scoring more than 1, if at all, in this game. They are one of the worst teams at home this season, despite 2 victories with Sean Dyche in charge. It's 4 wins across the campaign, utterly outplayed against Aston Villa in their last game at home when they lost by 2-0. Brentford are interesting. I don't agree with your point on Thomas Frank and his potential future because the way he plays football is utterly unattractive. Now, I don't mind that, but he's not going to go to a better club than Brentford because other clubs might want you to play, football. And he's not going to do that. He's going to be essentially Sean Dyche. He's Danish Dyche. He's going to be doing the exact same thing he does every week. And Tony inspires a counter-attack and they bomb runners forward and they overwhelm you. And it's brilliant. I love it. I'd love it to be my team, but I don't think Liverpool, Tottenham at all would be interested in it. So he might have found the level of his career and he might go in future to other mid-ranking clubs. And even that's a compliment, I think, because Brentford, to be considered a mid-ranking Premier League club, is a massive achievement. What's going to happen here? Well, I mentioned under, I mentioned the goals. If I was to pick a winner, I would shade for Brentford because of their incredible unbeaten run. I think it's 11 or 12 unbeaten in all competitions for Brentford. It's away from home, at least 5 games without defeat, 2 wins and 3 draws in that time. Drew at Arsenal, drew at Forest, beat West Ham. They go places and score. They go places and win. They go to nervy crowds and get something from it. And Ivan Toney to have 2 shots is 4-1. A corner will be scored in this game, over 5 for each. I'd shade for Brentford, but if you do all the rest of it and pick the other winner or the draw, you're still going to make some money depending on your gut.
Yeah, absolutely. Healthy odds on either side to win, especially for Brentford, which are enjoying a good moment. Now is the turn, Tom, for Leeds against Brighton. Roberto De Cervi's team, one of the delights of the season. You had to suffer them, and you were spot on about West Ham traveling to the Amex last show and the impossibility of getting a positive result away to Brighton. But anyway, they were extraordinary. Such a well-drilled team. McAllister now playing more like with more freedom on a number 10 position, not that much close to Caicedo in midfield as it was at the beginning of the season. The way this team, Brighton, can get out of pressing is amazing. It's like they're like toying with you. Leeds on the other side had their chances at some point to score in Stamford Bridge. They weren't clinical enough against Kepa. They ended up empty-handed. My first feeling with this match is that we are on the way to a goal festival, maybe, Tom. But then looking at the last 5 times they faced each other, the head-to-head, only 6 goals scored. Will you be surprised if that happens again on Saturday, a low-scoring game between Leeds and Brighton?
It's an interesting one, this, isn't it? I think it really is, because Leeds are under another manager in Javi Gracia, and I think he has brought a little something to Leeds. They have had a little bounce out of it in the games he's been in charge. The victory over Southampton, even the performance against Chelsea last week, despite the loss. I think the issue for Leeds is that there aren't enough senior pros in the team. That's the problem. Look at the front 3. Young. Sinistera, Ruta, and Nonto. Brilliant. I love them all, and I'd love to have them all in my team, but maybe not together. There's going to be no Bamford. There's going to be no Rodrigo. The midfield, Tyler Adams, McKennie, and another, probably not Aronson, Rocker maybe. But again, it's young, it's inexperienced, and they've wilted a few times this season. And I think that's the issue. There's not a steady hand on the till right now for Leeds United. And I think they're finding that in games. They found that last week against Chelsea, I feel. And at home, it's funny, in recent times, we always think about goal fest, but a 1-0 win against Leeds, a 2-0 loss against Man United, a 0-0 draw against Brentford. They did draw 2-2 with West Ham previously, but even in that, I don't know, could they have scored more? They didn't really create much apart from the 2 goals they scored against West Ham and one great save from Fabianski. Beyond that, it wasn't like, oh, well, thrilling lead. So I don't know. I'd put a pin in that at the moment and find out after this game what happens. If they score 5 this week, come back to me and I'll agree. But Brighton, I mean, look, West Ham were diabolical last week, and we'll get to them later in the programme. They gave the first 2 goals away, right? And when you find yourself 2-0 down away to Brighton, West Ham's heads dropped last week to Bruno Fernandes levels. They were just so beaten and so battered by Brighton. That last 20 minutes was, I couldn't watch it. I had to walk away from it because it was unwatchable for someone who wants West Ham to do well. But they were brilliant. And I think that in Mitoma, they've got one of the players of the season. In Caicedo, the same. Defensively sound, offensively effective. And every player has got better under Roberto De Zerbi. They were already improving under Potter. So how's this game going to go? Well, I think you've got a team in Brighton who a couple of times this season have gone away from home and underwhelmed. I'm thinking Fulham away most specifically in a game I was at where you were like, oh, what's happened here? But but also away from home. I think they're the 5th best team away in the Premier League this season. 5 victories, 3 defeats, 22 goals scored. At home, Leeds United have got 4 wins, but also 4 defeats and 4 draws, and they concede 16. So I can see there being goals in this game, to your point, but I don't know if it'll be 3-2, 2-2. I think Brighton are going to win. If I was going to shade for a winner, Brighton at 2-1 is great odds most weeks because they win a lot of games. Both teams score, Brighton win is also really interesting to me here as well. But I think Brighton to score second half goals, judging on the way they've improved in second halves, look to last week and look to 2 or 3 of the previous weeks too. As the game goes on, they get stronger. When the stakes get raised, Brighton improve. So I'd be looking here potentially for goalless at halftime, Brighton win the second half, and both teams score as well.
All right, we have some comments as well. Danny and Duni, Leeds double chance. Marco Paul, who's joining from Tanzania, says Brighton, both teams to score and over 2.5. That one combined, over 2.5, both teams to score, pays 2.2. So that was Leeds at home against Brighton. Next, Tom, is Leicester City Chelsea in the King Power Stadium, where Leicester has taken only 12 points this season, only better than Southampton. They are only 2 points above the championship zone, and they are on a run of 3 consecutive Premier League defeats. The last one, a painful one, away to Southampton. And now they face revitalized Chelsea. They play maybe their best match since Graham Potter arrived in September and qualified to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, which will give them some time to refocus on the Premier League, at least for a couple of weeks. Tom, you spoke about the amount of player changes that from game to game that in Chelsea. What if Potter has found his best 11? Will you give the benefit of a double chance here to Leicester?
I wouldn't touch Leicester. I would not touch Leicester with a barge pole right now. 3 defeats in a row. I think this is probably their worst form of the season. And I worked on the Southampton game at the weekend. And the funny thing about it, and James Maddison, their midfielder, spoke about this afterwards, they were really good until something happened. A bit of adversity, which was the penalty, which was saved, and then they conceded. And when they had that moment of adversity, crumbled. Totally fell apart before our eyes. And in the end, a pretty poor Southampton could have beat them more comfortably than they actually did. There's real issues there in the camp. There's a collective brittleness about Leicester City. And I will say this as well. Last week, Kelechi Iheanacho, God bless him, had one of the worst individual games I've seen from a player this season. And it was actually cruel, I thought, in the end, for Brendan Rodgers to leave him on, because he kept missing chance after chance after chance after chance, headers, shots, everything. He was in the wrong position, muffed up the shot. He was awful. And then Rodgers kept him on because if an Iheanacho had scored, he gets a confident Iheanacho, but he kept him on and he kept missing chances. And then he started getting in Jamie Vardy's way. And then he started passing the ball into touch. And, you know, that happens in football teams. It's incredible to watch. The collective yips is happening right now with Leicester. And I think they're very worried. They could end up bottom of the league in 2 weeks' time. This weekend, they could be level bottom, 24 points they currently have. I still don't think Leicester will get relegated, but it's only Maddison. Without Maddison, there's nothing else happening. Tielemans is out. The defense isn't working. The strikers aren't scoring. Harvey Barnes had a stinker himself last week, only covered by the poorness of Iheanacho ahead of him. So, fascinating game this, because if they turn it on, Leicester, you know, they could win. I'm not going to put my money on it, but, you know, you can feasibly see it. So, I think they're in big trouble. For Chelsea, I agree with your point that I hope he's found his team, because that's what's required here. All this whinging and moaning about, I've got 31 players. Well, pick the ones you like, and we'll move on the ones you don't. So have your team, have your 6 subs you like, your 3 additionals, maybe the youth team, and then the rest of them, you get them to look for new clubs. We're only 10, 12 games away from the end now, 3 months away. So let's buy Pierre-Emerick, find a new club. You know, sorry, Mudryk. I don't know why we bought you. Have a, go back to wherever, Shakhtar, whatever it was. So I think that's interesting. Chelsea were fantastic in the game in midweek against Borussia Dortmund. I thought they played very well, though they lost in the first leg as well. They have been a bit hard done by. I should have beaten Southampton. I mean, you know, one of those games. It just came at a bad time for them. So I think they'll win this game, Chelsea. I think it'll be relatively low scoring. I just cannot see Leicester scoring a goal. I can't see it. I can't see Leicester putting a goal together. Maybe James Maddison does something special, but apart from that, I wouldn't touch anything to do with Leicester. And I'd be looking here for Chelsea to not make a great deal of changes from the weekend. Look at João Felix to have 2 shots in this game at 4-1. Look at Chelsea to win without conceding in a low-scoring game. Under 2.5, Chelsea win, and check out the Felix to assist and shoot market.
And also building on that, Chelsea to win 2-0, 3.5. And if Leicester, as you were saying, cannot score, that looks as well pretty good. Chelsea to win and over 1.5. Marco Paul says as well on the comments. Some and also saying Chelsea, they are back. We will see if they are back at least in the Premier League. Next, Tom, now we have is Tottenham, Nottingham Forest. Spurs last night out of the Champions League, which makes the FA Cup exit, I believe, more painful because that was a realistic chance for Spurs to win something after 15 years. We all know Antonio Conte won't continue next season. This week, there was some PR for Pochettino to return to the club. So we're going to hear more and more talkings about who's going to be the next manager of Spurs, although Antonio Conte yesterday last night, he refused to say if he's going to stay or not. I think this match at home with Forest could be still a hot pan for Conte and for Levy. For Forest, the big issue here is their away form, Tom. The worst team in the Premier League is Forest, away from home, I mean. 6 points won in that condition, 1 win all season. That was against Southampton. As always, Spurs, I believe, will leave it late for the second half to show up. So a draw at half time shows odds of 2.53, which is not bad.
Yeah, look, I think your point on Tottenham is absolutely right. Antonio Conte isn't going to stay. He was never going to stay. It has not worked out. And the FA Cup loss was catastrophic last week against Sheffield United. There's no other way to slice it. And they're in a battle for 4th with Liverpool. Who cares? Who cares? Conte doesn't care about that. He's not interested in that. He came here for glory to get some spurts out of Harry Kane. And now what? They might finish above Liverpool. I think this season, to the end now for Tottenham, is going to be a bit of a greatest hits tour. It's going to be a long, drawn-out goodbye to Harry Kane. It's going to be a long, drawn-out goodbye to Antonio Conte. And I think it's the end of an era for a lot of this Tottenham squad and what Tottenham have been trying to do. They need regeneration. They don't need to go back to the future with Pochettino, I don't think. They've got to try and find what is next, not what was. They keep trying to recapture what was, and it's not going to happen. They can't capture it. And also, it's worth saying, what was didn't bleeding win anything. So why are you trying to recapture what was when that wasn't exactly the glory days anyway? You're not exactly going back to the days of Bill Nicholson. So, look, we know what Tottenham are going to do. There's no point analysing it. We know how they play. We know everything they're going to do. They do the same thing every week, win or lose. It'll be 0-0 at half-time in this game, and then Tottenham will win it in the second half, probably with Harry Kane scoring a goal. With Nottingham Forest, you mentioned it there, 1 win away from home all season. I think they are one of the worst teams in the league this season. Even the games they've won, they've been pretty poor in them. And I don't like the way they play. I don't like the way they built their squad, and I kind of want them to get relegated because they'd finish below West Ham. That'd be great for me. No, but also, it's just the way they've gone about it. They don't play good football. They're not really worth watching. And it's just a ragtag group of horrid mercenaries. There's no character or personality around Nottingham Forest. And, you know, fair play to their fans. I hope they've enjoyed it. But from a neutral perspective, there's nothing to like really about Nottingham Forest. So Tottenham win, low scoring. Probably Harry Kane scores a header. 0-0 at half time. Spurs win it in the end and go for the under on goals and shots as well. I'd be stunned if there was more than 10 shots in this game. On target.
Jose Miguel, Tottenham to win. Lower odds there, 1.47. Sarwar Iraqi, Kane to score. If that's your choice, Sarwar, Kane to score anytime is at 1.72. Not bad neither. From Tottenham, Nottingham Forest, the last game on Saturday will be Crystal Palace, Manchester City. Citizens looks like they are moving into cruising speed. And when you can take Kevin De Bruyne out in a match and bring in Bernardo Silva like against Newcastle because you need someone to control the tempo of the game a little bit more, when you can afford that luxury, then everything looks easier too. Phil Foden and another match in the right direction, scoring a beauty, Tom, as well. In Selhurst Park, Liverpool, Manchester United, Brighton and Brentford, for example, couldn't get more than a draw and no one scored more than a goal. Last season, the whole city for a 0-0. Can they do it this time again?
I mean, they can, absolutely. I think Crystal Palace are just floating above it right now. And they're a couple of wins away from moving away from it. And we have to suffer through them for another season in the Premier League, doing nothing and finishing 14th and hoping Alfred Zaha win some games for them. Repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse. It's all going wrong for Patrick Vieira. We're hearing stories of him falling out with staff and players and his surprising timidity. Despite his kind of like all this on the sideline, has kind of left Palace looking a bit personalityless. He's got a pretty average squad to a near safe position and deserves credit for that. But look over the last kind of few games, they're one of the worst teams in the league. In the last 10 matches, it's 1 victory, 5 draws and 4 defeats. In the last 15, they had another couple of victories on top of that. But, you know, last 5 games in the league, them and Newcastle, weirdly, are the worst 2 teams in the competition with 3 defeats, 2 draws. And they just don't score. I mean, they don't score unless Wilfried Zaha does it for them. They've had no Mark Gay recently, which has made Anderson look worse at centre-half. Nathaniel Klein at full-back in 2023 is incredible. Decore in midfield is a hacker, a bit like Christian Romero at Tottenham. Kick first, ask questions later. There's not a great deal of creativity. And those players who give you a bit of sparkle, Elise, Eze, you know, there's a reason they're playing for Crystal Palace, right? And that's because they can do it one week and then you don't see them for 3 or 4 weeks. And Palace are finding that out. They've got too many inconsistent mavericks in their team. And all they're going to do is hope Wilfried Zaha can score a goal in this game and they can hold out for a draw. That will be the hope. They'll also hope for a Man City off day. And we've seen a few of them this season, as you alluded to. But I do think that Man City, you know, we're heading into Man City's home now. We're heading into Man City time. And there was the Nottingham Forest game recently. And there's been a few sort of games, Everton at home, where you've been a bit like, oh, what's happened here? What's going wrong? What's not quite clicking? And we kind of thought that was happening against Newcastle last week, right? And then they went Man City on us. Someone steps up. We're in that bit of the season where your great players step up, and they have got so many great players, a ludicrous amount of great players. So look, how's this game going to go? Well, obviously, don't touch Crystal Palace. If you want the draw at 5s, you know, it has happened this season. It's not a safe bet by any means, but a 1-1, a 0-0, I don't fully discount it. So if you feel like this is going to be a Man City off day, Palace can capitalise on that. I personally don't. I think City are going to win this similar to the game against Bournemouth. I think they'll score in both halves. I think they'll win both halves. And as ever, look at the Haaland market. The hat-trick is 17-1. I know the goals have slowed up, but it's always worth a tickle somewhere. And also, you mentioned Bernardo Silva in terrific form right now. I found today Bernardo Silva to score from outside the area. You can get from anywhere between 23 and 34-1 across the markets this morning. So Bernardo Silva to score from outside the area is one I like for this one too.
Tom, that they play 4 days after Champions League second leg against Leipzig could be used as an excuse for a little switch off or not. In this case, it shouldn't be the
Look,
case.
maybe, you know, it does happen, but I just feel like we're in that bit of the season now where City come to the fore, and I expect it. I expect it because I've seen it so many times. We've all seen it so many times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't discount that with Manchester City, and they've had more off days this year than in any other season under Pep Guardiola, apart from the first year. But I think it's a beautiful opponent to play.
All right, so that's Crystal Palace, Manchester City. And now we move on to Sunday games. Great match to start with was London, Fulham against leaders Arsenal in Craven Cottage. Since losing with Manchester City, 4 wins for Arsenal, and against Aston Villa and Bournemouth coming actually from behind, which is like a good statement of the mentality of this team at this point of the season. I know the real pressure maybe Tom will start to crack on in April when the end of the season is around the corner and the possibility of finally winning a Premier League for this young team might turn real, and we will see how do they respond on that time. But the City win on Saturday night will give them more time to think for Arsenal players that City is right behind them. They could start the game against Fulham with City 2 points behind them. It's true with Bournemouth, the same happened. They started the game with City 2 points behind them, but they play straight away after City defeated Newcastle. And this time they're going to have a nice almost 24 hours to think that City is very, very close to them. Fulham was not at their best in Brentford, although Solomon again scored again. They will go for it against Arsenal, I believe. Massive odds for a Fulham win. We can see that 6.20 for the home team to win, or at least to hold on for a draw in the first half. First half Asian handicap 0 for Fulham, 3.54. But what are your thoughts here, Fulham Arsenal, Tom?
Well, look, I think Fulham aren't the team of maybe 6-7 weeks ago. I do feel a bit like, despite some good results picked up, including Brighton away, which was a tremendous victory for them, performances have dropped off a little bit. I do feel like that we're getting to that 40-point mark, and they've got an FA Cup game coming up against Man United next week, and maybe focus turns to that. And also in this game, it's worth noting Palhinha is going to be suspended. 10 yellow cards, so it's a 2-match suspension. Missed the game in midweek on Monday Night Football. And is going to miss this one as well. And Lukic in midfield, no, just not anywhere near the quality. And that's, I don't know Lukic particularly well, but he should have been sent off on Monday for a second bookable offence that for some reason wasn't given by Anthony Taylor. And he's not as good as Palhinha, who is one of the best players in the league this season. He's been incredible. Scored goals, wins the ball back, runs the midfield. He's incredible. He's an incredible player. And I think deservedly will be in the team of the season come the end of the season. So without him, there's issues there with Fulham. And they have lost home games this season. They are beatable at home. And sometimes it doesn't quite switch on. 3 defeats at home this season. No wins in 2. So there's issues there for them. For Arsenal, I mean, last week, it certainly wasn't anywhere near their best performance of the season, right? Nowhere near the quality that we've seen at times this campaign. Losing Trossard to injury could be a massive blow. He's brought a lovely new dimension to what they've done. He's also allowed them to play without Eddie Nketiah, who's a big doubt for this game, to continue to play without Gabriel Jesus, who, might come back next weekend, could be on the bench for this one, maybe, possibly, probably not, though. I think they've got to be really careful with that. So there are issues there. Martinelli and Saka remain your 2. Who's the other one? We shall see. What they do with the midfield as well is interesting because they might need to treat Thomas Partey very sensitively. And if he's played Europa League, can they then play him again on the weekend? I don't know the answer to that. I probably wouldn't. So there's issues there, and it's a real tough game and a real tough place to go. I think it's going to be quite low scoring, actually. I think that Fulham are going to be very good here at shutting this game down, keeping it tight. They won't press high. They won't let Arsenal in behind. And I can see it being level at half-time. I could even potentially see Fulham winning this game as they were at Emirates Stadium earlier in the season with Mitrovic scoring the opening goal. Arsenal came from behind to win. It's become a bit of an Arsenal thing. I can see another slow Arsenal start. I can see another strong Arsenal finish. And I'd be looking at Arsenal to win, both teams scoring, Arsenal win the second half. And look at that Martinelli market. It's on terrific form right now. And I think at least 2 shots on target and a goal from him will just add a little bit of spice to your 1.6 for an Arsenal win.
And yeah, so you mentioned not too many goals perhaps on Sunday. Craven Cottage goals under 2.5. They are exactly right now on 2.09 on Oddspedia's website. We will see then what's going on or what's happening in Craven Cottage. Marco Paul saying for him over 2.5. That's 1.87 for the goals over 2.5 market. Jose Miguel, Arsenal win. Mikel saying, guys, press the like button, and I'm agree with that. Go to Odspedia's channel on YouTube and press the like button as well. From Fulham, Arsenal, then Tom, we move on to Manchester United, Southampton. We will see the reaction in Old Trafford, not on Sunday, tonight. Straight away in the Europa League, they face Betis. Of course, what happened in Anfield was huge, the biggest defeat for the club since 1941. Maybe a stain that will be very hard to remove from Erik ten Hag era. But Manchester United, at the end of the day, Tom, they cannot afford to feel sorry for themselves. They're still fighting for titles because if Liverpool picks up consecutive wins, they might have may they have Liverpool behind them chasing for the third place. We will see. Southampton looks re-energized, having changed manager as well. 2 wins in the last 3 league games. Because they played tonight and because United tend to gel more later in the game this season, Manchester United winning second half has better odds than Manchester United winning outright, which is 1.39 as we can see on the screen. But Man United winning second half is slightly over 1.70. But how do you see this one unfolding, Tom?
Well, look, I think that the reports of the effect of the loss against Liverpool are greatly exaggerated, because if they win the FA Cup and Europa League to add to the Carabao Cup already won and finish fourth, no one's going to care even
No.
slightly about the loss against Liverpool. Was it embarrassing? Yeah. Did they play poorly? Yes. Were the goals quite demoralising on the day? Yeah. But I think they'll move on pretty swiftly. Just one of those games, one of those days, and it also came off the back, and it's worth mentioning this, I think, of Barcelona, a cup final, a tough game against West Ham in midweek. It doesn't change the first team, Ten Hag, very much. He's not one of those managers. He keeps his first 11 game after game after game after game. And, maybe you can do that with Ajax. Maybe you can do that in other countries. Maybe you can do it for a while, but you will come unstuck in the end. And they just look collectively shattered in that game against Liverpool in the second half. And as we spoke about with kind of West Ham Brighton earlier on, there comes a point in the game where you're so defeated that you kind of need to know how to handle that. And I think it was pretty evident. Some of those players had very little career experience of handling being beaten with such a long time in the game to go. Bruno Fernandes, we're looking at you. So, look, I think reports of the impact of it are going to be exaggerated. I think that Casemiro, if fit for the weekend, will go back to the player we've seen all season. I wonder whether Wan-Bissaka takes over from Dalot at right back kind of more permanently, how good he's been recently. But in general, we know the team. In general, we know how they're going to set up. And I think you make a great point, too, about the second half. Certainly look at the draw at half-time and Man United to win in the second half. I also wouldn't discount Southampton scoring the opening goal in this game. Look, I didn't think they were particularly good in the game against Chelsea, and they won. I also didn't rate them in the game against Leicester, really. But they still won that game as well. I think in Alcaraz on the wing, they've certainly found someone who is super into the Premier League. Terrific finish, I thought, for his winning goal. I don't know how fit he'll be. He came off injured at half-time or just after in that game, but he looks pretty decent. James Ward-Prowse remains a threat whenever the ball is stopped dead within 30 yards of the goal. And again, 12-1 to score from outside the area. It's quite a nice one. 4 away wins for Southampton this season. That's pretty impressive compared to just the 2 at home they've had. I can see them doing a little bit of damage here in this game, but I'd still go for Man United. Man United win it. They win the second half, level at half-time. I don't discount both teams scoring in a 2-1, but look for Man United to win the game and score late goals, as they do.
Funny with Alcaraz that you mentioned him. In the Argentinian football, he was arriving to the box, but he was struggling to score. And since he arrived to Southampton quickly, he gelled into the team, and he already scored twice, one in the cup and one last weekend against Leicester, and to win the game. So we will see if he has the chance to play, how he does in Old Trafford. Now, the one before the last, Tom, West Ham, Aston Villa. While we are doing the show, West Ham players are in Larnaca. I know you are not very happy with that, or for a Europa Conference League match. Tom, in different circumstances, I think you will enjoy to fight for an European trophy. But I guess now you probably wouldn't even like to turn up for your first 11. After Forest, we thought that finally David Moyes found the team, that finally maybe you could get out of the woods. But straight after, you go to Brighton and you get hammered 4-0. Exactly a year ago, West Ham won this fixture at home 2-1. I believe you will sign up straight away with both hands for that result. Aston Villa, after 3 consecutive defeats, now they can show 2 straight wins. Odds for a West Ham win, 230. Aston Villa, 360, as we can see there. But I don't think so. There is any West Ham fan, supporter, Tom, who now will tell me we are favorites for this match.
Don't touch West Ham with all the money you have. Don't put a penny on West Ham to win this game, because I don't know. I have no idea what we're going to see from West Ham. I agree with you. I thought the Forest little flourish of goals at the end might kind of finally see them cure the issue that's been such a problem all season, that's scoring goals. They finally have a goal scorer in Danny Ings, signed from Aston Villa, scored twice in that game. And I thought, yeah, okay, they don't concede that many goals. They've started to score goals. They're going to win the games to get them safe, and we can look at the Conference League in a bit more hopeful fashion. And then the Brighton game was the worst performance of the season, and it wasn't even close. And Ben Johnson, I think he's just diabolical, Ben Johnson. Just not, I don't know. I don't think he understands the concept of positioning, and no one seems to be teaching him. And every time he plays, he costs the team a goal. But the trouble is, his replacement will be Tilo Kehrer. So what do you do? Like, it's been a disastrous season for West Ham. None of the new signings have worked out at all. Danny Ings, maybe you could say a positive for, but apart from that, not a single one of them was worth buying. None of them. So last summer was a massive bust. Skamaka has been a complete waste of everyone's time. And he might probably play in the Conference League in midweek. West Ham, if they play a single player in the Conference League on Thursday that's going to play on Sunday, I think my head will explode. Because the second team could not get beaten by Larnaca. And then next week, they've got a second Conference League game on the Thursday, and then no game at the weekend because the Man City game has been postponed because of the FA Cup. So Declan Rice shouldn't even be on the plane. Like, he should be training, thinking about Villa. What do we do against Villa? The first team should all be focused on Villa. But I don't know. David Moyes has got literally everything wrong for so long that I expect to see the first team play against Larnaca for inexplicable reasons. At home, 2 wins and a draw in the last 3. Pretty decent. They also got a draw against Chelsea in that run, which is reasonably good. So, look, I don't discount West Ham drawing or winning this game, but I just don't envisage it. And also, Aston Villa, the signing of Unai Emery as manager, I think, is a masterstroke. I think next season they're going to be the team to watch. I think they'll spend in the summer. And if they spend well, unlike West Ham last summer, they could be on for a really good season. And I can see this being pretty similar to the game against Everton a couple of weeks ago at Goodison Park, where they take advantage of a nervy crowd. They stay in the game. They then unleash Ollie Watkins on the break. And if Watkins gets through on goal right now, Watkins is going to score right now. And I can just see that for Aston Villa. And the way they've played, it's 4 away wins in the past 5 under Unai Emery, despite the kind of form you mentioned overall, home and away, having to turn around last weekend. They give everyone a game. They outrun opponents. They can score right now. Villa win this game without conceding. Ollie Watkins scores.
Tom, some people in the comments pointing to the corners market. I believe if West Ham in front of the fans, they're going to try to push. We're going to start to see crosses into the box. Maybe that will lead into corners. Corners over 10, 2.47 is something you would pay some attention or not really?
West Ham don't score from corners this season, so they stopped playing for corners. I think they've scored 1 all campaign, and they've actually only conceded from 1 corner all season. That was against Veltman last week for Brighton. So, this time last year, yes. Right now, I wouldn't touch the West Ham corner market because they've stopped scoring from them, so they've stopped playing for them.
All right, so Dan left us with one game to analyze. That is Newcastle Wolverhampton. Since the 31st of December, only 1 win in the Premier League for Newcastle, and that was a 1-0 and in added time against Fulham, who missed a penalty moments earlier, and Alexander Isak winning goal. Wolverhampton arrives at the back of a crucial win against Tottenham last Saturday. They have plenty of quality to do better than the 27 points they do have so far. I look at Wolves and I don't know why you left Craig Dawson leave West Ham. Actually, one who can score from corners, so something you're not doing this season, as you said. He's not Van Dijk, but a very decent defender who can score goals too. I understand Wolves' away form has not been great all season, but 5.75 for a Wolverhampton win is a bit odd, as the bookies are showing.
Yeah, I agree. I like that a lot, actually. 5.75 might get to 6 by the weekend. And look, it's going to be a draw. Okay, I'll say that from the outset. It's going to be a draw. It screams draw to me. I'll be putting my money on a draw in this particular game. Newcastle have drawn 3 of the last 5. They've stopped scoring goals, but they still don't concede that many on average. I think that there's a lot of crises of confidence going on right now at Newcastle. And, I wouldn't be stunned to see him win, but at 1.7, it's not going to be worth your money. I think that Newcastle and Wolverhampton Wanderers will be more than happy to get something from this game. Newcastle stopped the rot of results. Wolverhampton Wanderers, another little point to their tally to stay in the Premier League. It'll make 28. That makes them maybe 8 points away from safety with 11 to play. They'll get there from this point, I think. So, and the Craig Dawson thing, it was a personal issue. West Ham were desperate to keep him. Okay. He wanted to go back to the Midlands. So, I would have kept him for the end of this season. They've basically strengthened a direct rival, but there you go. Less said about West Ham, the better. Really pitiful so this season has been in every regard. So, look, in this game, I think Newcastle United will score no more than 1. Everyone has stopped scoring. So Maximan's come in, but does he work with the rest of the offense? Isak, what is he? Wilson, if there's no space in behind, what has he really got? And some of the quality around Bruno, the likes of Longstaff and Willock and Murphy, it's looking like lower mid-table now, as they've been for most of their careers, as opposed to the overperformance of the season. Wolves, Still no striker has scored a goal for them all season. If they had a proper striker, if they'd have booked Danny Ings, I might look at them to win here. But don't get dragged in by the odds. I think it screams draw, and it's under 2.5.
Marco Polo on the comment saying Wolves double chance. That is 2.32 for Wolverhampton on a double chance. So that's everything in odds on Premier League Matchday 27. But before we go, of course, Tom, what's your safe bet and ACCA for this Matchday 27?
So my ACCA this week is going to be a simple treble, nothing extravagant. I keep getting 2 of 3, and it's really winding me up. So Liverpool, Tottenham, Man United to win brings you in around 3-1. It's a really conservative ACCA, but more likely to come off than not. And my safe bet, I've not put it in the ACCA because it actually doesn't really change the ACCA at all, because Man City don't really give you very much. But the safe bet is still Man City to win. I'm doing it most of the season, and it's worked 18 of 26 times I've said it. So Man City win is my safe bet.
That's amazing. Many thanks, Guy, for watching. We hope you enjoyed the show. And before heading to Oddspedia, website you place your bets, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. Tom, a pleasure as always, and see you next time, okay? Bye-bye.